Welcome to the AI Business News Desk. This is Terry Sweeney, contributing editor with AI Business, and joining me now is Traci Gusher, America's AI and data leader with consultancy EY. Traci, thanks so much for joining us on News Desk.
Thanks for having me.
We, of course, are talking about AI in the enterprise as enterprise leaders look for tangible business outcomes with their investments. Are they seeing this value coming through? And if so, where are they seeing it?
Yeah. So, despite what we're reading in some headlines that are putting out some I would say negative press on organizations experiencing value from AI, what we're actually seeing is some tremendous value generated.
Okay.
And actually, we did a recent survey with a large swath of business leaders, and we asked them about this question. We asked them about value. And 96% of them said they're getting productivity gains out of AI.
Okay.
57% of them said that the gains they are achieving are substantial, which is very different than some of the headlines we're reading, right? It's contrary. What's really encouraging, though, also, is that for those organizations that are spending greater than $10 million on their AI programs, there's actually been over a 10 basis point improvement year over year in the benefits they're receiving out of AI. So it's not just that they're receiving them, but they're continuing to really build momentum.
Okay.
And that I think is that there's been a bit of some paralysis around this topic where I think a lot of organizations have felt like they needed to slow down or to hold on because they don't think that they're getting the
Sure.
value, but the value is being realized.
Okay. So when we talk about value, you mentioned productivity. How else are these companies defining value from AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, I think generally speaking, the organizations that are getting some incremental value, getting a little bit of an ROI, are really over-indexed on the cost takeout side of AI value. And they're not spending enough time thinking about the growth agenda. And that's actually where I think the larger gains are coming from, is in innovation, in market differentiation, in customer growth and product development. That's where I think the biggest gains are coming from.
So less tangible, but nonetheless really important to any organization.
I do think they're tangible, though,
Okay.
because you are seeing increased customer satisfaction. You are seeing speed to market timelines decreasing. You're seeing increase in top line revenue.
So switching gears slightly, you alluded to this, I think, a little bit ago, but there's fear that these productivity gains from AI will lead to layoffs. Is this something you're hearing from clients, and is this a way that companies are leveraging their productivity gains with AI?
Yeah, I mean, there's been the great saying we're all used to now, which is AI is not going to take your job. People who use AI will take your job, right? And so, it's a topical conversation. It's certainly something that is, a negative employee sentiment, right? And the headlines again in the news aren't helping us. There's a lot of organizations right now that are going through some very unfortunate layoffs. But what they're not saying is that most of those layoffs are not truly related to artificial intelligence. Most of it is overhiring that was done during the Great Resignation, right? What we're actually seeing from a productivity and headcount reduction standpoint is really quite nominal. Again, in the survey that we recently conducted, we found that of all the organizations that were realizing productivity gains from the use of artificial intelligence, only 17% of them said they were resulting in any type of headcount reductions. Instead, the money is being reinvested into their businesses. It's being invested into projects that they didn't have human capacity to do. It's being invested in looking at innovating in those product launches and bringing new products to market. So while certainly I understand the concern, the data and the facts that we're looking at right now are not leading us to believe that it is a massive impact on unemployment.
Okay. Well, speaking of headlines, the story that hit the wires just recently about the Big Five planning to spend in 2026 $520 billion, I believe, is the figure that was quoted among them. Given the significant capital that companies are pouring into AI, are leaders seeing enough financial return from their own perspectives to justify increasing those budgets in 2026?
Yeah, I am seeing no indications that those budgets are going to decrease. I'm seeing very little indication that they will stay flat, and I am seeing a ton of indication that they are going to increase next year. Some of the data that we got back in our survey supports this, where a number of organizations who historically have not been investing as much as $10 million a year or as much as 20% of their annual IT budgets are saying they are going to increase up to or above that $10 million mark, and in fact, increase the percentage basis of the dollars, their IT budgets in AI, indexing more heavily on it than they have in the past.
Okay, not to throw water on it, but is there an element of keeping up with the Joneses here that like our biggest competitors are doing this? We've got to be in the pool as well.
Yeah. I Terry, I don't interact with a single client that doesn't ask me the question, am I behind?
Okay.
Right? Every client I work with is asking that question, and they're asking, what is the market doing? What is the industry doing in their particular domain area? And that there's going to be winners and losers in this race. And when I look at the success stories that we're seeing and where value is being generated and the levels of investments that organizations are making, I do believe that those that are achieving the strategy of being a first mover or an earlier mover are going to end up being the ones that have the competitive advantage in the end.
Okay, so whether they decrease or increase or keep flat, there is an imperative to keep spending. That we're on this train and this train is going forward.
There definitely is, and I think the one adjustment that I see that needs to be made, that the organizations getting the most value are realizing, is that we have to stop spreading these precious capital dollars against too many initiatives. We need to narrow it down to those strategic imperatives that are going to have an investor level type of benefit versus a panacea of tiny little use cases with incremental value. So while I do think the capital dollars are going to increase, the organizations that are going to see the biggest benefits are the ones that are going deeper, not broader.
Okay. Shifting gears, I want to ask about responsible AI. Before we go there, can I just get your definition of responsible AI? It's one of the buzzwords that has crept in in the last year or so. Tell me how you define that.
Yeah. So responsible AI for me is a multifaceted approach to governing AI to protect both your organization's reputation and your organization's health and financial performance, right? Okay, that's a big, broad definition, but what does it really mean? It means having responsible AI that has explainability, that has transparency. You can't eliminate bias, but you can recognize where there is bias and you can mitigate it in your models. It means having a strategy for AI that is targeting your AI at the right types of value, having governance in place to make sure that those capital dollars are being spent on the programs that are going to generate value. It also means having an ethical compass as an organization, right? All too often, there's AI that is being generated or is being experimented on, and organizations have to ask the question, if my customers know that I am using AI for this purpose, will I be proud of them knowing that? Will they still have the same level of trust that I have in this? And do I have the transparency forward to do that? So another element of responsible AI is building trust into the system. And that's as much about transparency as it is about the AI that you're doing tying back to your ethical compass as an organization.
Thanks. That's actually really helpful, just as a lead-in. But real briefly now, how are companies approaching responsible AI, and have you seen any changes around that in this past year?
Yeah, there's AI governance programs being built that are multifaceted, that include multiple different executives across the organization. And to the latter half of your question, we're seeing a change. And the change that we're seeing is an increase in focus. Actually, year over year, we found that executives and senior leaders had increased training for responsible AI 60% year over year. So the change that we're seeing is that there's more emphasis on it versus less.
Traci, some great insights into how enterprises are thinking about and acting on AI. Thanks so much for joining us on News Desk today.
Pleasure's been all mine. Thank you.
We've been talking to Traci Gusher of EY. This has been Terry Sweeney with the AI Business News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.